Right now we have the President of Dance Sport Australia to give you some interesting information and insight into what's happening in the dance sport world. Please welcome Dallas Williams.
Thank you, guys. Lovely to come across here. I've been here once before. It was about five years ago, I think. For those that are around, the tablet system when we were first introducing it, and lovely to come back and seeing a full house, which is great. And I'm told it's a sellout. Is that right, Derek?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. WA. Thank you, Derek.
He's our PR.
I want to have a quick chat first, and then I'll hand over to questions, because people have got questions about the changes in recent years and all that. And if you don't catch up with me now, because we've only got 30 minutes, I'm here all afternoon, and I can meet you out there if you've got something to talk to me about or whatever, rather than interfering with what's happening in here. So here for the rest of the day. But as the governing body, we often get asked about, why are the changes coming in and what is it really doing to help the sport? Well, just an example, yesterday I was at the Vic Open. Now, they shifted their comp, as you probably know, to the start of the year, which was quite courageous in itself, because starting the year off very early in Victoria is always fraught with danger and has been tried many times over the years and failed many times. They had a very good day yesterday. Fair to say that most of the people there were in the recreational division, and it's the recreational division that has doubled the numbers in Victoria. It was announced last night that Victoria has received from the Department of Sport and Rec a grant of $70,000 for the next 3 years to develop the sport in Victoria. They access this based on $70,000. And that's based on the fact they've moved to the next tier of the grants. You guys here get about $13,000, is that right? A year, which sounds like a lot if you don't have anything, but $13,000 when you split that up and you're trying to do promotional work is very thin on the ground. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to get out there and sell ourselves. At the moment, and everybody knows this, half the competitions that are on, you wouldn't even know the competition was on unless you're part of a studio. How are we getting out there? Well, without the advertising and without promotion, it's not going to happen. Whether it's in the schools, whether it's, where before they was telling me it should be in the doctor's studios. Oh, those brochures, no, those ones right there. And the other one, terrific. Just to show you what, and I'm not saying you should follow Victoria, but I'm not a Victorian anymore. Am I, Graham? No, neither's Graham.
Or a South Australian.
Or a South Australian, or a Queenslander. No, I'm a Queenslander now. Brochures that Victoria spent their grant money on last year about the sport. And this went to every studio, of course. Studios had this on their front counters and that, Dance Sport Victoria on it, and we've often been asked, why don't Dance Sport Australia make the same things available to all the studios? And the short answer there is that we're not really funded for that. It'd be lovely to do. But they haven't stopped there. When there's a wedding expo, when there is a sporting expo, when there's other things coming up, they'll, without that grant money, hire a stand, get volunteers together, and they man these stands. They're getting out to the public and getting people interested in just dancing, the recreational stuff. Now, you guys don't have the numbers yet, but I'm telling you, don't give up. When it reaches critical mass, you will develop numbers. Victoria has had many of their recreational people from last year transfer over to the amateur division for this year. It's happening. The system's only been in place really about 1.5 years, and it's already happening. And of course, as I just said, had a $70,000 impact on Victoria. So there are answers out there to promoting our sport, but we have to do it And we have to convince the Department of Sport and Rec that we are prepared to listen to them and we are prepared to work with them. And that is exactly what Victoria did. And as I said, off those numbers and off the placement of a 5-year strategic plan, they got that funding, and they were told if they can raise the numbers again, there's the next tier is about 150,000. So every state has the funding there. Yeah. Varies.
Very much.
Depends on the state. Probably depends on the population too. But pro rata, it's still there.
Could you tell me how many recreational people there are in Victoria?
Registered in 2016. Currently, I couldn't tell you who's registered. I know at the end of last year we were pushing about 700.
Do you know what WA is?
Not off the top of my head. I know amateurs in Victoria were about 500. So the recreational division overtook the numbers. So hence the interest. Look, the government loves dance sport. There is no way. We tick so many boxes. We are gender equal. We are equal opportunity. You know, we are actually, you know, we do so much good in the government's eyes. What we don't do is promote ourselves. We keep it all in-house. As I said, no one even knows our competitions are on unless they go to one of our studios. And that's the cycle we have to work, and we've got to break down. As I said, there's things that the sporting departments around the country keep coming back to us with, and a long list of things sometimes, and they keep asking. Obviously they want more figures. They don't want to know just what we've got registered, because whether you've got 100, 200, 500, that doesn't matter anymore. It's how often they're dancing. You know, the figures that are just raw, you know, are they attending every competition you're running? Or are people only registering and dancing once a year? So when they talk participation numbers, they want to know how often people are engaging with us. And until last year, we never had any way to be able to do this. I don't know if anybody realises, but we have never, up until the point system, had a way of collecting that data. Yeah, we used to send our results back and it might go into a shoebox under a bed somewhere or something in a printed form, but the online database where all your points are, we can now extract and see how many times people dance, and the government loves it. So, I'm saying don't give up on your recreational people just yet. I know you don't have the numbers here, but they are growing, and it's only really, you know, the second year in. How much time have we got, Barry?
All afternoon. Okay.
20 minutes. Cool. Questions? We can have an early lunch if you've got no questions. Oh.
Quick question about when you first came and introduced the point system.
Yep.
And how it's going to be and how it's all in the computer. Then there was a central point that each kid has to get to the new level.
Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And that is a very high number at the moment, and I believe at the moment it's all the same in every state. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now you said that it's going to be tweaked per state depending on the numbers. What I worry about is that the kids dance and they don't. There's not enough participants, so they stay in one grade for a long time. Now I don't mind that. But if we have one couple in Perth who has done almost every comp in youth, every comp in adult, and they still couldn't get out of C to B.
Yes. We've got a few, there's a couple of problems there, and we're not just talking tweaking here. First of all, the levels must be the same for every state. We couldn't have a situation that you could get 100 points in WA and you'd be one level, but if you're in Victoria it'd be 300 points. We actually have to keep that bar consistent throughout the country. What we should change and what we need to work on, and this is development with the organisers themselves is a bonus point structure that would be for maybe, WA might need an extra so many points per competition that goes into the system to balance up the numbers that occur in the eastern states. We have the same problem from Queensland, we have the same problem in northern Queensland. We have Mackay, Cairns, Townsville, and their populations are much smaller than what you've got here, and they're much worse off with that disparity. So they would need more to bring it into line, to be fair. And this is what we're discussing at the moment. The problem with the children is a little bit different. Now, I just want to make sure that everybody understands, in our system, when a juvenile goes to junior, they go from whatever their grade is and gets reset back to C grade. And then when a junior goes to youth, the same thing happens. They get reset back to C grade. Now, that means on average, these kids only have really about 2 years in each of these age divisions to go from C grade to A grade before they get reset again. Their bar needs to be much lower than the adult bar. But until the last year, we didn't really know how often these kids were dancing and where they were dancing and what the implications were. So now that we have this data, it's much easier for us to look at that and make a real adjustment on that. So what we're aiming for here is that our children that start off in juvenile would be able to get through to A grade prior to obviously going into the next age group. And then the cycle will start again. All right, so it's two separate problems here. The kids need to be looked at differently under 16. Of course, once you're over 16, there's no going back. Because even though we say youth here, our age group here is not really youth. Everybody understand that? Our age group in Australia is under 21. So it's not under 19 at all. Our age group is really under 21. So, when people swap from youth to adult, we're talking about adults. We're talking 21-year-olds. So it's not quite the same situation as a youth person.
Dallas, just on that, in juvenile win an Australian championship, and then if it's new vote, for instance, they're dancing with broken holes and all the rest of it, and they go into the youth, they now got to go back into a restricted hold formation of the category. So what can be done about those people who actually want to dance in the B grade, going from one section to another?
Yes, but no one stops you from dancing just the open. If you're, I've already got couples that have done this, that were A grade juniors and they went into youth. They didn't want to dance the grades. They just danced the open. They elevated themselves to A grade. You can self-elevate any time you want. You just declare, get your teacher's permission, please, before you do, or your parents. But because it's a one-way trip, and I've got people that have done this. If you don't want to dance in the restricted syllabus, you don't have to. The rule is there. You can move up. You can just dance the open events. Problem solved. Yeah, no, it's a fair point. But look, why have we got grades at all? Why do we have them? We go overseas. We dance Blackpool. There's no grades. Do we, Alan? No grades.
Well, there is.
Rising star. Well, there you go. But that's not really a grade. That's on what you've won up to a certain point of, whether you made the final, semi-final, isn't it?
In the semi, you can't do it.
Yeah, if you made the semi the previous year, you can't do it. With the same, with a partnership or one person? Had to be the same partner, didn't it? Yeah, whatever. But what I'm saying is that the reason for having a grade is giving people a go that aren't as well developed. So if you do have a situation that you do have an A grade junior that's really good, and they're going into youth and they don't want to dance because they leave the space for those poor ones that started when they were 15, 16 years old, C graders. The same argument is also for, I'll be with you in a sec, Graham. The same argument was also for the youth people when they go to adult. If you've got a 21-year-old who's A grade, and they said, oh, we'll reset that back to C grade, they've got to go out and then compete against some poor guy who started when he's 20, 21 years old. It's very unfair. So the grading is there to give those less experienced a go. We could easily run our competitions without any grades, and we could run shorter competitions. Might be better. Actually, sorry, was it Malcolm? Did you have your hand up? No? Yes?
Yes, I did, Dallas. My concern is when you have a junior A grade couple that go to youth and they are brought back to C, their experience level is so much greater than a youth C grade.
Correct.
And if they choose to stay to dance youth C, I think that's where we have a little problem.
We don't have enough juniors to worry about at this point in time. It'd be a lovely problem to have. Are you from WA? Can you ask a question? No. That's okay. Graham?
We give you permission.
Thanks, man.
In the UK, they still have competitions for grade people. They call,
There are smaller competitions, absolutely.
they're called pre-chat.
Yeah, yeah. And they're usually run by, the society groups over there. Look, horses for courses. But, we wouldn't think of running the Australian Championships without having grades in it, would we? But if they did, we could cut it back from being 3 days easily. So that running grades isn't necessarily part of the business, but we are doing it to help people develop. And that's the whole idea. Hang on, I've got Alan down here.
You had your hand up before. Yeah. Go for it.
Just very quickly, I was probably the major architect that took it from 5 to 3. And I actually, in the DSA meeting several years ago, wanted it down to 2 grades. I felt to make it more simple, open and rising star in every age category would make it more simple. And I think this year at the Australian, I judged a proper comp for the first time in this country. I judged the competition, forgive me, I can't remember which one it was, but I think it was the youth B grade. I think it was 4 rounds. Now, the more rounds you have, the more requirement you have to be efficient, the better dancer you become. The graded system, in my opinion, lowers the level of the dancer. There is no requirement for there to increase their efficiency and their skills. So if it was the world according to me, it would have been 2 levels. So I just want to say that. And also the last thing I'd like to say is, I think things like this is fantastic. Dallas, this year at Canberra we have on the Friday, we have an open forum for the profession. Please, professionals, come. Put your opinion across and shape your industry. Don't stand on the sideline throwing stones and carping. Shape your industry. The National Council will do what is required. We will listen, but you have to speak for us to listen.
Thank you, Alan. You just took the heat off me. It wasn't me that got rid of all the grades, so great. You heard it? It was Alan. Sorry. Down the back there, red hair, don't know your name. Yeah, look, I get what you're saying. It's a cultural shift because we have worked forever and always talked about the win. And I've had this said many times, well, I elevated but I didn't win. But hang on, you must have won something to get to the point of having enough points, because nobody in their own right have actually earned enough points unless you've actually won and had the transfer of points over. So you must have already had like 200 points transferred, so you're only one win off elevating anyway. Well, it means that your experience, you've already won 4 times, so you're almost there. And that's, look, it's always hard to get a transfer to work properly, because we have to take an existing system and fold it into a new system. And we've had people on both sides saying, I don't have enough points to elevate, and other people saying, I've got too many and I don't want to elevate. We also have the inequities that, you know, throughout our country, Victoria region now knows this quite well, that, you know, we used to run, you know, level 2 and level 3 events. People would dance up into a level 3 and there'd be all level 2s, and there'd be no level 3 1, but they still had to take the win. So we had a lot of people elevating to the higher areas that weren't good enough, but they're coming from the country, and it was still a competition and still recognised. So, you know, it's not, the transfer, I admit, isn't perfect. And I've said this many times, if someone's got a real gripe about what points they had, we have, you know, last year we looked at that many times for different people. But on the whole, we are developing, you know, a better group of dancers. What are you saying there, Gareth? 5 minutes. Ring the bell. Hang on, I've got more questions, but I'm not looking at Richard yet. Because that will go on for 15 minutes. No.
May we go back to the subject of promoting our sport?
Yes, we may.
How do we become registered as one of the 30 elite sports that attracts government funding for after-school activities for children?
Actually, thank you for mentioning that, because I've just received that paperwork to tell us how to do it. And it's not just after school sports, it's a, they have it in each state. There's a list that comes out that the government produces that is recognised sports, and on this list is also things like 10-pin bowling and other things, and we're not in that list. And I have just received the paperwork, and we're going to be looking at that over the next couple of months, what we have to get together, and it's something that DSA National can do to get us on that list, because if we can get on that list, yes.
Later, please.
And thank you for bringing that up, because it only just hit my desk this week, literally. So, thank you. Richard.
4 minutes, Richard.
This young gentleman down the bottom that said he was fourth at a national championship.
Correct.
And he's elevated, and the winner of the national championship didn't elevate. Now, if I come back to say, you said the couple can dance open events.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a couple. Theoretically, I have a couple that only dances open events, only dances national events, doesn't do small events here, but he only dances the bigger events, never wins, gets from the first round to the 24 every time, and clocks up his points. He has to elevate, and he's never won an event.
Is this a real personal or a theoretical situation?
Because that's what can happen.
What's the question?
The question is that you could dance just open events, many of them, and do reasonable, but not win, and you would eventually elevate, and that's true, you would. You would gain enough experience, because what are we talking here? We're elevating from C grade to B grade. If you know, we're not talking about a great shift here, it's really a marginal shift from C to B, or from B to A. In a system that we are trying, the C graders are really our raw beginner and amateurs, not counting recreational, they're coming in and joining us at that point of time. So I don't see the argument here, is that a problem that he does elevate, or is it a problem that he got lots of experience and didn't elevate?
I can see there's a problem because if he wants to actually win the level to get out, and he's got points from participating in big comps that he's never won, he's got to elevate.
Richard, he'd have to dance a lot of competitions to actually be in that sit, and in which case he'd probably have the experience to dance in the next grade.
But you also said, Richard, he doesn't dance in the grade.
You know, we're not talking about a real person here either, so it doesn't matter. We got another question? Julie. Oh, you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll have my support too. I just wanted to make the point that the only thing that concerns me about if there was the possibility of changing to 2, grades rather than 3, I think it would detract people coming into our sport, especially recreational people. A lot of our recreational couples are aspiring to go into C grade, but if the standard was too high, I think they would go into grade.
Look, once again, that's we're not doing that, by the way. It's not something. This is
across in case.
no. You're hedging your bets. Alan wasn't allowed to do that.
No, I mean I can understand it in a lot of ways. It has some great merits, but we're trying to get a lot of people into our sport. Into a country we don't have very many dancers.
You're right, and the purpose for having a grade in the first place is to give those people less experience a bit of a run. Otherwise, we just all do open events. Honestly, we just do open events, and and our experience from our open events would carry us into the next round, into the next, cycle.
We have new people coming in because they're too scared. Oh, everyone's so good, I'm not going to go out there. True.
People do start, even in countries that don't have grades, people still dance. But it's a cultural thing, and that's our problem here, is that we're so used to and so locked into, and that's coming back to what I first said when I first started talking, we have to start thinking outside the square. Things are changing. I hear so many comments all the time about, I was saying this to Derek on the way in the car, and comments like, oh, when I danced, I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning and I stayed there all day, and even though my event was at midnight, people don't want to do that anymore. I have people come to me and say, that Dance Sport Live site, they put the running order online and it's got all the times on and all that. That's the reason why people don't turn up early. I've had that said to me many times. And I say, seriously? So, mum with 2 kids dragging them to a competition, she needs to know what time to be there. If we're going to have these young parents engage with us, we have to be user-friendly. Making them turn up at 9 in the morning when the kid dances at 3 in the afternoon, and then they have to buy a program. Sorry?
14 seconds.
14 seconds. The bell didn't go off, Barry, so I keep going until the bell goes. Man, you've got long arms. I hope, was that your arm? Guys, I'm here all afternoon. I go back at whatever, 10 o'clock tonight. And come and see me if you've got any more questions during lunch or whatever. We can sneak out the back here and have a chat, and that's what I'm here for. Talk to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice. So everybody pay attention for one moment with our presenters. And officials, please go out and get your lunch now, because then I'll give you time to get back in. Everybody else stay where you are. I'd just like to thank again Dallas Williams, and it's fantastic that we now have a national president who will come to these places and talk to you. So guys, use him up. It costs us a fortune to get him here. We're paying him big money. So make sure you get out there, ask him any question, anything that you're worried about, talk to Dallas, he's happy to answer. And if you just give us 5 minutes for the presenters to get their meal. Everybody, the meal is on. Remember, you either have steak or chicken. Thank you.